Production funding for Ruckus has been provided by gifts from Dave and Jamie Cummings, the Hartwig family, Barbara and Peter Gattermeyer, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Ruckus, our weekly food for thought fight over the news of the day and the trends of the times. I'm Mike Shannon. The Ruckettes join me shortly, and our topics this week are Yoder voters having second thoughts, some second thoughts about the Second Amendment, and a potential king-size name change, plus roast and toast. But we start with our Newsmaker segment and continue the discussion about public works in Kansas City conducted over the last several months here at KCPT and on our digital magazine, Flatland KC. Today we focus on water service, and joining us for that discussion is Terry Leeds, Director of KC Water. Mr. Leeds, welcome to Ruckus. Thanks for coming in.
Glad to be here.
As your name implies, KC Water, it's more than just the water that we drink and take a shower with.
Correct. We're a department of the city, but we are responsible for water, drinking water, wastewater, when you flush your toilet where it goes, and also the stormwater system that the city has and maintains.
From time to time, you hear people talk about the high price of water service in Kansas City, Missouri, and I think you would agree that it probably is higher than in some so-called peer cities, but there's a reason for that, and that's the consent decree with the EPA, and that deals with what, the sewer
Yes, that's on the
system?
wastewater side. We
Yeah.
have a federal consent decree that requires us to spend about $4.5 to $5 billion over a 25-year period. We're in the 8th year of that program, and we've had to significantly raise our rates to support that program.
And would you assume that those rate increases will have to continue for a while?
The rate that will go into effect May 1st will be 9.5%. The projections were we continue double-digit type on the wastewater side.
And the reason you had to agree to this consent decree is because of the structure in Kansas City, Missouri. It's been ignored for a lot of years, I assume.
We have an issue with deferred maintenance of our sewer infrastructure, but in particular, this consent decree came about because Kansas City is one of over 700 cities in the country that has combined sewers. And that means that in portions of Kansas City, the wastewater during dry weather all goes to the treatment plant and pumped, everything's good. But in wet weather, those same pipes also carry stormwater, and the systems can't handle that. So we have overflows from our combined sewer system at 90 locations throughout Kansas City.
And you have to deal with water main breaks on occasion, do you not?
We do have that as well.
And again, that's because of an old system?
Yes.
Deferred maintenance?
Deferred maintenance, really. We should have been replacing water mains all along.
And that's not your fault. That's been going on for decades in Kansas City, I believe.
Yes.
Not just on water services, but elsewhere in the city.
That's correct. We have water mains that date back to the 1870s, still in use in the city market today. But most of the water mains that we're replacing are from the post-World War II era, where we were switching the pipe material to a ductile iron pipe, and that pipe, I call it the junk pipe era. After the war, there was shortage of metal, and so they were doing things to thin up to reduce the amount of metal required, and it took about 20 years to get that right.
I suspect there are some responsible people who cannot, for whatever reason, pay all of their water bill from time to time. Don't you have some kind of a program that exists to help them?
Yes, one of our major issues is affordability with our rate increases that we've had. And so we do have a customer assistance program where we provide $400,000 a year to the Mid-America Assistance Coalition. It's non-rate revenue, so for people that pay their bill on time, it's not coming out of their pockets, it's coming out of other fees that are generated from non-rate revenue. And then we provide that to them. Then they work directly with 211 Network charitable organizations who then work with people in the neighborhoods.
So people with good reasons to not pay the bill may get some help from some organizations?
Yes, currently they can get up to $500 of assistance.
Should point out that KC Water is an enterprise operation. That is to say, you don't get direct money from the city's general tax fund.
That is correct.
You get money from your bills.
We bill everybody once a month. So it's a little different than tax dollars that you pay once a year. Our customers are reminded us that they pay us on a monthly basis.
On one of our public works programs here at KCPT, there was a reference to ghost water, water that's lost to leaks that can't be found. Do you have any experience with that?
So we don't really call it internally ghost water, but I understand the term.
Yeah.
We use unaccounted for water. So it's water that we take in at the treatment plant that never makes it into someone's home that we receive money for. So leaks are a large portion of that, but it could be metering inefficiencies. It's that we lose some water in the treatment process. There's a number of things that go into that.
A tragic situation that occurred in Flint, Michigan concerns people, I'm sure, everywhere about the possibility of too much lead in the water system. I'm sure you could tell us that that's not a problem here.
It's not a problem here. We're not aware of any lead service lines. But Flint was really an outcome of poor governance more than a poorly run water system. Flint, Michigan has some of the highest rates in the country, and they also had a big population decline. So they weren't bringing enough revenue to take care of the system that they had.
I bet you have a website that people can look at and get all sorts of information about water service in Kansas City.
So the easiest way to go there is kcmo.gov, and there's a water drop right at the top. If you click that, it takes us to our webpage.
Click the water drop.
Click the water drop.
I like that. Thank you very much for coming in. Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
That is KC Water Director Terry Leeds. Now let's meet the panel and start a ruckus. Ron Freeman is a motivational speaker and writer. Attorney Patrick McInerney is a former prosecutor and is now with Spencer Fane. Mary O'Halloran is a media and communications consultant, and Steve Marakian practices law and offers philosophical musings at Wersch, Hobbs, and Marakian. It was Shakespeare who asked, "What's in a name?" in Romeo and Juliet. The importance of a name seems to be the basis for a battle between the Kansas City Parks Board and leaders of the black community. The local Southern Christian Leadership Conference is launching a petition drive, hoping to get a place on the August ballot. The goal is to rename Paseo Boulevard in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the legendary civil rights leader who was assassinated 50 years ago this week. The Parks Board turned down the earlier request, citing existing guidelines. So what are the guidelines, Ron, and do they seem reasonable to you?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, because they have their opinion, but it's technical that it has to be named after someone who's made a significant contribution to Kansas City. Well, I think Dr. King made a significant contribution to Kansas City. And you look at what he did. I mean, the man's message transcended a generation. And in a sense of, he called, he called America to its own greatness. Whether you're black, white, whatever your ethnicity, he said all of us, we can be better than what we are. And I think to honor that man in that way would not be a problem. But the Parks Board, obviously, they have their rules. So.
Does it surprise you that the Parks Board has this reaction?
It really does, because it seems almost petty in the sense of you're creating a rule. It's not like you're moving someone else's name. Obviously, Paseo was named for a region from related to Mexico, but it wasn't some individual who's going to lose any ground. And I think you have Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Personally, I think he deserves a highway, but we'll take the Paseo Boulevard.
Take a street.
Patrick, is Paseo the appropriate street to be honored by the King name?
I think it'd be great. I don't even know why we're talking about this. I mean, why is this a debate? If you knocked on 100 doors down Paseo and said who or what was Paseo, nobody knows.
Right.
And if you ask them who was Dr. King, everybody does. So the next question, the real questions are, why aren't we talking in more depth instead of a street, talking about what King was working for and what King fought for and what he died for? I mean, he was in Memphis to support the sanitation workers. He was talking about economic equality, right? He was addressing issues like that.
Let's talk more about that. Mary, why do we want to honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.?
Well, because he was the great, iconic leader of every effort that I can think of in the second part of the 20th, actually the last 60 years of the 20th century, for freedom and justice in our country, and he succeeded. He is the man whose spirit lives in every single American who gets up in the morning and says, I'm going to march to change things for the better. I'm going to make the country a more just, more fair, more peaceful, and less poverty-stricken nation. He was the greatest American of this 20th century. I would throw in John and Bobby in there too, but. There isn't right. You're right, Pat. What are we talking about this for? If we take a vote, it'll be 99% of the people.
Well, that was
support
going to be
this.
my question for Steve. If this does get on the ballot, and I suspect it will, they'll be able to get the necessary signatures to demand a place on the ballot in August. Will it pass?
Oh, I mean, it'll pass overwhelmingly. Again, there'll be a few people who will vote no because they just vote no. But with one exception, I agree with what everyone has said. I don't put John Kennedy or Bobby Kennedy even anywhere near close to Martin Luther King. I think Dr. King did something in our society that was so monumental by comparison, both in terms of the religious background, the peaceful protest notion, the idea of change through bringing people together, not through dividing them. Dr. King was all about doing justice, economic justice, moral justice, social justice, but through unity. And I wished we had today, from leaders of all races and all ethnicities, that same approach, that we do things based upon your character, not the color of your skin. Dr. King was one of a kind.
All right, Ron, Kansas City experienced a riot in 1968 after King's assassination. Does that still have an impact on race relations in Kansas City?
I think without a question, you still have challenges, and because a lot of preconceived notions. Sometimes it feels like we run back to 1968 and it acts as if society's that same way, and it's not. And so, yeah, it does have an influence and an effect today. And until we can really, and it comes back to what Steve said, to judge one another by the content of our character and not the color of our skin.
Right.
And the minute that, excuse me, that becomes the issue, then nobody wins.
And finally, Councilman Reed said the council should just take up the name change and override the Parks Board decision. Do you think that should happen?
Yeah, I mean, procedurally it doesn't matter. You can put it to a vote, you can give it to the council, whatever. I mean, I think it needs to happen, and there's no reason for it not to happen.
If the name is changed, how long will it take the public to start using the right name for what they're now calling Paseo?
Right away. I am a proud former member of the board of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and it was Martin Luther King's organization. He started it. They're going to see this through successfully, and the city's going to rejoice, I think.
All right, let's move ahead. Kansas City Star columnist Steve Kraske believes Kansas 3rd District Congressman Kevin Yoder, a Republican, is more likely to lose his re-election bid this year than in previous campaigns. Among the reasons cited by Kraske, a large number of Democrats running for the chance to face Yoder, Hillary Clinton's 1% victory in the district 2 years ago, and Yoder's views and votes on key topics such as health care, tax cuts, payday loans, the NRA, and Donald Trump. Kraske concludes by observing Democrats sense this may be their year. So first to Steve, then to Mary, will 2018 be the Democrats' year?
Well, it very well may be, and if it's not, then it's going to be a long time before it is. This is their chance. It's an off-year election. The Democrats, I think, will do very well nationally. I think Kraske was right in some of his issues. Yoder is going to have a challenge. It all depends, in my view. I think this one is for the Democrats to lose, not to win. If they have the right candidate who comes out with a more moderate position, such as the guy did in Pennsylvania recently, I think there's a very good chance of winning. If Yoder can survive, which he very well might in Johnson County, then I think the next election, assuming that Trump runs again or the Republicans have a good candidate if they put somebody up if Trump doesn't run, then I think everything's going to change. And Johnson County will come back much more to what it always has been. So this is the year. If Yoder survives, I think he's going to be entrenched for a long time. But he's got a real heavy load ahead of him.
Does he have any serious opposition in the primary?
Well, no, nobody that I know of in the primary, in the Republican side, I don't think there will be. But I do think, and I don't know much about the people who thus far have been put forward by the Democrats. I really just don't know who they are, okay? And that's part of the problem is they need to come with someone who's got some good name recognition, and in my view, needs to come with a really moderate position, because if they come out with somebody who is perceived in Johnson County as being more of the Hillary Clinton wing, despite the fact that she may have won by 1%, there's been a lot of backlash on that now. They've got to come with somebody who is not avidly anti-Trump and all these things, and then they can win.
On to Mary now, same question. Will 2018 be the Democrats' year?
The big blue wave is coming, Mike. You can see it. Look out the window. It hit Wisconsin Tuesday night, and here it comes. Well, of course, Johnson County has 185,000 Republicans and 100,000 Democrats. That's something to overcome. But that isn't, you know, this particular district was Democratic for a long time. Dennis Moore's playbook is the one that our guys are, and by the way, there's a woman in the race now, Sylvia Williams, who will be a real contender, I think. Tom Neerman is moving up to the top, if not at the top right now, and he's a good guy. But of course, you're right, and nobody really knows who these people are, but we do know who Kevin Yoder is. And why would my congressman find it necessary to be in bed with the payday loan people? That's a good example of the kind of Kevin Yoder blindness to who lives in this district. Education's going to be big. The fact that he's just really a Trump guy now. He's a long way from the Kevin Yoder that got elected in the first place.
Last week on the program, Ron, we talked about Jeff Rowe in a column he wrote in the New York Times urging Republicans to emphasize Trump's victories and minimize his eccentricities. And I believe that Rowe is Yoder's consultant. Is that good advice for Yoder to follow? Emphasize Trump's achievements, downplay his deficits?
I think you have to play on the positive, but here's the story. Everybody wants to make this a Trump NRA campaign and race, which those aren't negatives in a lot of people's minds. They're not negative in Johnson County in the overall. What you have is a Republican who, even in the year when Hillary Clinton won, when Mrs. Clinton won that district, he still won by 10 points. So there's a steep hill to climb. You're going to have a contentious Democrat primary. You're going to have a lot of things. They're going to spend money in that primary. He's going to sit on his money. So it's going to be a race where, again, I see Kevin Yoder being reelected possibly by 10 points again.
Patrick, in the column, I think Mr. Kraske suggests that Yoder's support of the tax cut bill might be a liability. How is supporting a tax cut a liability?
Well, he said the tax cut bill and the failed health care plan as well. Yeah. So, I mean, I think it is one in a long string of ties that you can make between Yoder and Trump. I think it's, you know, depending on who you are and quite frankly, depending on the rapidly changing news about the impact of the tax cut, the candidates are going to have to make a decision about how closely to tie it. And I quite frankly, I think it is somewhat of a Trump election in that district because, as Mary said, he's tied so closely, and his record and his voting record is tied so closely to what Trump has done, and he hasn't done anything to distinguish himself or even push back on some of the ridiculous things that Trump has said.
Assuming that Yoder has some strengths, what would you say is his greatest one as he heads to this re-election?
His strengths?
Yeah,
I think he's widely known in the district. I think there are people all throughout that district who will tell you, I know Kevin Yoder. I've dealt with Kevin Yoder, and you know they like his style. This is really about whether he's doing his job to reflect that district.
And he was in the state legislature for a while before.
He was.
He's got a lot of friends.
And he has
He's done a good
hair.
job. He's been a good congressman.
He has really
does have good hair.
Good hair is an attribute not to be ignored. The call for change following the Florida high school shootings continues. Some people are having second thoughts about the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Among those is 97-year-old retired U.S. Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens, appointed by President Ford. The amendment says, and I quote, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." Justice Stevens says the Second Amendment should be overturned. To do that, you need another amendment that takes 2/3 approval from the U.S. House and Senate and approval from 3/4 of the state. So the Second Amendment is not in any real danger, is it?
Second Amendment's not going anywhere, and not just procedurally, but politically, it's not going anywhere. I think what Justice Stevens was doing was a judicial throwing up of the hands, and I think he's expressing the exasperation that probably a lot of people feel about the inability of this country to come to grips with what we've wrought, and that is a situation where weapons like AR-15s are available for people to walk into schools and shoot kids, and we can recite that all day long. The real question is, I think whether there's going to be some consensus, some leadership around recognizing, as a lot of NRA members, individual members do, there's no use for an AR-15. There's no use for an AK-47. There's no use for a Tech-9 on the streets. There just isn't, and that's not a threat to anybody's right to defend themselves. That's not a threat. That's not the first step in a slippery slope. There's consensus around. There can be consensus around that because I think everybody, raise your hands, will say I'm against school shootings.
Steve, even if the constitutional right to keep and bear arms were overturned, and we don't think it will be, but if it were, would there not still be millions of guns and other weapons available to millions of people?
Yes, that's one of the reasons that this is such a complex issue. I agree. I don't agree with what Patrick said with regard to the AR-15s or the Tech 9s or whatever. I believe in the Second Amendment, and I believe the issue is not doing things that essentially weaken the Second Amendment, in my view, defeat the Second Amendment by outlawing certain kinds of weapons like that. But having said that, the problem goes deeper. What happens if you do? What if you were to pass legislation, not repeal the Second Amendment, which is never going to happen, Patrick's exactly right about that, but pass legislation that said, for example, all the AR-15s and all Tech 9s and all these are all illegal now. Okay, we have 100 million of them in homes. So do we start confiscating them? Do we start going door to door? Do we only prosecute someone who commits a crime with the gun, which is already something we do? What do we do with all of the semi-automatic pistols, all the handguns, all the rifles? You know, an AR-15 is nothing more than a rifle. That's all it is. Okay, it has a name on it, but the bottom line is, it's not the fact that we have our AR-15s. It's that we have a society that is truly, literally sick, and it's the people who are committing these horrible crimes, and they're going to commit them with handguns, they're going to commit them with rifles, they're going to commit them with shotguns.
But they're not going to stand on the 38th floor of a hotel and shoot 500 people from a quarter mile away with a handgun. Those weapons, AR-15s, and those kinds of assault rifles, those are meant to kill a lot of people in a short amount of time.
And that's what our Supreme Court, and that, unfortunately, our Supreme Court has said, and we ignore this, our Supreme Court has said the Second Amendment not only applies to military weapons, it only applies to military-style weapons.
And here's something else that the Supreme Court says. Antonin Scalia, the great defender, I suppose, who knows, of guns everywhere, the culture that we're starting to live in, very clearly outlined in his comments after Heller and Washington.
Heller is the decision
District
that
of Columbia versus Heller.
An individual right to carry a weapon.
And he said very clearly, nothing that I have written about this means that this amendment cannot, that the various local ordinances and so on cannot be adapted to this amendment.
True.
Absolutely made it clear he didn't intend that there never can be any kind of legal and constitutional restriction. Now, let me just say, Ron, you know, there's nothing in this country where 99% of the people agree, but they can't get anything done, and that's where the frustration is. They want this moved up to 21-year-olds for most guns. They want the weapons of war taken off our streets, and they want universal background checks.
I'm told we got to move on. Do you have anything?
Well, the thing is, here's the deal. We've had that type of firearm on our streets since 1885, and we didn't shoot each other. We've changed, not guns.
All right, now we have to head to the soapbox for Roast and Toast, where the Ruckheads have 30 seconds each to offer cheers or sneers to people and events in the news, and we start with Mary.
Well, I do want to toast the Southern Christian Leadership Conference for what they're doing in the city of organizing this tremendous, I hope, outpouring of support for renaming the Paseo the Martin Luther King Avenue or whatever they choose. The name it currently has is named after Avenues of the Reformers in Mexico. It fits perfectly with Martin Luther King's meaning in life. Good work.
Ron.
Yes. You know, we've had semi-automatic weapons on our streets since 1885. And we look at what's happening in our society today. We've created a culture that is rooted in shaming each other, condemning each other, and we've created really a suicidal, homicidal environment, and that's the problem. we can say this about the NRA, we can say this about firearms, but at the end of the day, if I don't make a bad decision, nobody gets killed. So it's us. Let's be responsible citizens.
Mr. Marakian?
I'm roasting Kansas City Star writer Dave Helling for his mean-spirited attack on Fox host Laura Ingraham for committing the mortal sin of criticizing Parkland student David Hogg for his F-bomb-laden ignorant rant suggesting that Guns Rider supporters like to see dead kids. David Hogg may be just a kid. It does not excuse his buffoonery. Calling Ms. Ingraham a comic carnival barker for her fair comment on Mr. Hogg's boorish behavior is Helling's attempt to demonize the speaker rather than debate the speech. Ingraham is an intelligent woman who has far more knowledge of law and the Constitution than Mr. Helling has or ever will have.
And Patrick.
I'm going to toast kids just like David Hogg because now is the hard part. Now the attention is starting to wane a little bit, and now they have to push this mission forward. And I think that they have created a bigger groundswell in the last 2 months on this issue than we've ever seen before. It's the modern civil rights movement.
All right, and finally, here's a quick toast to National Review. The magazine was able to explain in one sentence what happened to Rex Tillerson, who has been fired as U.S. Secretary of State. The magazine put it this way: Rex T goes the way of T-Rex. And that is Ruckus for this week. We're back next Thursday at 7. Now for the Ruckettes and the crew, I'm Mike Shannon saying thanks very much for watching and good night.